Shalom Chevra. So I want to share an incredibly deep idea about the big three. The big three averos that you're not allowed to violate even in order to save your life. And I'm currently working on my next sefer, and I'm working deep in this specific sugya. So I want to share a really powerful paradigm shift. Because the question is, what is so special about this big three? Right? You're not allowed to kill someone, you're not allowed to serve idolatry, and you're not allowed to violate gilui arayos, loosely translated as adultery. So the question is, why not? And why these specific three mitzvahs, these specific averos? So I want to take you back to understanding the general framework of why are we ever allowed to violate averos in order to save our life, right? Someone points a gun to your head and says, eat this cheeseburger. You're allowed to, and according to some, you even have to, eat that cheeseburger, and you're not allowed to give up your life. Hashem wants you to save your life. So what's the idea behind that? So the Gemara in Yom and many other places talks about this principle of v'chai b'hem, that Hashem created us to live a life of truth, to actualize our potential, but the purpose of the mitzvahs are not for us to give up our lives for. They're here for us to live in alignment with the truth and to develop ourselves. But if it's a choice of a mitzvah or an avera or our life, Hashem wants us to save our life. So Chilul Shabbos, of course, you violate Shabbos in order to save your life. According to many, it's not even that you violate Shabbos. It's not the chugi, it's not that you push Shabbos aside. It's hutra. It's like literally, there's no longer Shabbos. There's a chiyuv for hatzalas nefashos, for pikuach nefesh. You have to save the person's life. So in general, there's this framework in the hierarchy of values that as much as it's important to live a life of Torah and mitzvos, life is more important momentarily, so that you could. There's also this concept of Chol Shabbos Achas Kedei Lishmor Shabbosos Harbei, that you push aside one Shabbos so you can keep many more Shabbosos. Like, yes, mitzvos, emes, Torah, it's vital. But when it comes to life, we choose life over that momentary expression of truth because there's a higher truth, which is a life of truth. So we save life, even if it's at the cost of an avera. So the question then becomes, what about these famous big three averos? Murder, idolatry, gilui arayos. What happens to that equation? Like, why doesn't v'chai b'hem work? What about life? Like, what about the importance of life? Why wouldn't Hashem want us to push aside this momentary cheshbon, this momentary violation of truth, for the sake of life? So you'd say that for some reason, you can't. These are so bad, so severe, so chamor. These violate truth to such a degree that your life is not more valuable. And taking it from a different perspective, it's not worth it having lived a longer life fulfilling more mitzvahs, having violated such a horrible avera. To violate idolatry, it's better to die without violating idolatry than to violate idolatry and perform more mitzvahs. That's one way of thinking of it. When it comes to murder, there's also Mai Samach Dama Didach Samach Dama Dama Didei Samach, that who says your blood's redder, meaning how can you play God and say that your life should come first? It's more of an evaluation, saying you can't say that your life is more valuable. Because when you kill someone to save your own life, you're saying that my life and Avodas Hashem is more important than that person's life, so I should kill that person to save my life. You can't make that cheshbon. You can't make that decision. So there's different ways of essentially evaluating why these averos are so horrible, so bad, and why you can't use v'chai b'hem to say that I should live a longer life, a life of fulfilling my potential, and violate this one avera. Why can't you apply it to the big three? So on a simple level, there's just the chumras avera, the severity of the avera. But there's something so powerful, because when you look at these three, they have something very deep in common. When it comes to the Aseret Adibros, the 10 Commandments, the question is, what's unique about the Aseret Adibros? So it's a very deep topic. Like, what makes them so unique? If you say, like, these are the 10 foundational principles of Yiddishkeit, it's like, lo sachma, don't be jealous. Like, that's so paradigmatic. Like, you can think of maybe more paradigmatic mitzvahs than that. Like, what's so special about these 10? So Rashi, Sadiq, and many others talk about how these 10 are just not just fundamental. They are the 10 root mitzvahs within which all 613 are contained. As in, if you think of Torah as an Eitz Chaim, as a tree, These are the foundation, and all the other mitzvahs are the expression. So Rashi and like the Rishonim, basically, they categorize and show you can fit all 613 mitzvahs into these 10. And the Bala Machshav actually go further and say you can fit all 10 into the first 9, all 9 into the 8, all 8 that then go down, right? All of them are an expression of the first one. As in, everything is an expression of Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Everything, all mitzvahs is living a life of emes, a life devoted to the truth, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to essentially the oneness and foundation of everything. And all Losas says, every Avera is an expression of Avodah Zarah. Because Avodah Zarah is not bowing down to idols. Avodah Zarah, if you look at the Rambam, the Ramchal, the Maharal, Avodah Zarah is essentially not tracing things back to their root. It's getting stuck in the intermediaries. It's essentially not living a life of emes. Whenever you walk outside of the truth, whenever you are doing something other than that which you should do, it's a sniff, it's an expression, a subcategory of Avodah Zarah. Whenever you do what you want and not what Hashem wants, which is, at root level what you really want, is in your true self, is living in alignment with the Ratzon Hashem. Whenever you walk outside of who you really are, it's a minor form of idolatry. And every Avera is a subcategory of that, and every mitzvah is a subcategory of Anochi Hashem Elokecha. And in the deeper sense, Avodah Zarah is a subcategory of Anochi Hashem Elokecha, because the first step is to recognize the truth. I should live a life of truth. The second step is don't walk outside that truth. Don't serve that which is not true. Don't devote your life to that which is not true. So all of Torah mitzvahs, all of life is living essentially within the polarity of live a life of emes and don't live a life of sheker. And every time you do that which is true, you're aligned with that first principle. Every time you do something which is not true, you're aligned with that second. You're walking out of that second principle. And when you're in alignment with that second principle and you don't walk outside the truth, the second essentially is in alignment with the first. So it's really all just one system of live a life of truth. What's the big three? This is powerful. The Maharal even touches upon this. The big three, there's a very deep yesod that why are the luchos split into two different tablets? Why are there two luchos? Because the ones on the right are ben Adam l'makam. The ones on the right, on the left, sorry, are ben Adam l'chaveira. Right? So the ones on the right are between us and Hashem. The ones on the left are between us and fellow man. Right? So it's Anochi Hashem Elokecha, don't serve idolatry. Shabbos on the left, it's don't murder, don't violate adultery, things like that. So don't steal, things like that between the fellow man. So, and by the way, there is one problem. Why is Kibbud Av V'Im on the right side? Your parents are amazing, but they're not Hashem. So there's a deep idea that your parents, Kibbud Av V'Im is the first step of tracing yourself back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The ones on the right are not bin Adam l'makam, it's bin Adam l'makor. It's helping you source yourself back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The first step of tracing yourself back to an ultimate root and devoting your life to a higher truth is recognizing that you didn't create yourself, you're not your own maker, and there's a source from which you come, a source from which things come. So you say, okay, I came from my parents, where they come from? And you trace yourself back to their parents, then generations and generations, and you get back to Avram Avinu and Noach and Adam, and then you say, where did everything come from? Everything came from Hashem. So ultimately what ends up happening, and that living a life of truth is sourcing things back to their root. The source of living a life of sourcing things back to their source is recognizing you have a source of living in alignment with Kibbud Av V'Im, and that helps you trace things back to their ultimate root. So now we have the right side of the luchos are bin Adam l'makor, bin Adam l'makam. The left sides are bin Adam l'chaveiro. Here's the very deep idea. So the Bala Machshav will talk about how the ones on the right parallel the ones on the left. And this is where you see the power of the big three. The top one on the right, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, parallels the one on the left, Ritzicha, don't murder. The top one, the second and top one on the right, don't serve idolatry, parallels the one on the left, don't violate adultery. What do you notice about the top one on the right, top one left, second top one on the right, second top one left? You get 4, and the 3 outside of Anochi Hashem Elokecha are what? Those are the big three. The root foundational components of living a life of emes, not walking outside of that emes, and devoting your life to the truth within the realm of ben Adam l'makam and ben Adam l'chaveiro. Those are the big three. And here's why it's so powerful. To live a life of emes is to devote your life to the truth. You can only devote your life to the truth when you recognize that Tzelem Elokim within yourself and others. Meaning you have to realize you are here for a divine purpose. You're here for something extraordinary. You have something unbelievable inside of you. The only way you can ever murder someone The only way you can ever kill someone is if you don't see that spark of infinity, that Tzelem Elokim within them. If you see them as just a bunch of flesh and bone, of course you can kill them. It's an animal. Okay, should you kill animals? No. But to the same degree that you see things as just finite things, you can essentially kill them. The moment you see that as a divine expression of something infinitely valuable, there's no way you can murder that. So why can't you murder? It's the greatest corruption of living a life of truth in this world is not seeing that truth within another person. And the most fundamental aspect of living a life of truth is not devoting your life to that which is not true. So Avodah Zarah is the ultimate paradigm of walking out of reality. You cannot do that to save your life. Well, what are the big three? It's that I can't do that to live a life of truth because that is the ultimate expression of non-truth, of non-existence, of walking out of existence, and V'chai Behem can't apply to that. It doesn't make any sense. And what's the ultimate paradigm of the betrayal? Like, what is Avodah Zarah? Avodah Zarah is betraying Hashem. Hashem gave you life, gave you existence, gave you purpose, gave you everything. And to devote your life to that which is other than Him is essentially to devote your life to the ultimate corruption of truth. The ultimate expression of that commitment to that oneness, that bond of living a life of devotion is marriage. So the Ramban says that the marriage between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is most expressly expressed, most powerfully expressed in the relationship of marriage. It teaches us how to build that oneness. If you betray the bond of marriage in the form of Gilui Rayos, it's the human expression of idolatry. And now you basically have the root Anochi L'chtom L'kacha, the parallel Ritzicha, the expression of walking out of the realm of Anochi L'chtom L'kacha, Avodah Zarah, and the parallel of that in the human realm of adultery, of a Gilui Rayos. And the big three are not just three random averos or three big averos, they are the potent foundation of living a life of truth and not walking out of that. And V'chai Behem can't touch that because V'chai Behem can really only justify a minor walking out of reality for the sake of living a life of truth. But when you walk completely out of reality, there are some things that you can't come back from. There are some things that are so bad, like you can't apologize for murder. There's no forgiveness for that. It's unjustifiable to the extent that the only onesh that works within the human realm is Misa. And it's the same thing, like you can't justify that. Now, once you go into the complexities, can you sacrifice the few for the many? What if it's passive? What if you have the right intentions? What is to save Klal Yisrael? You get into a lot of very interesting questions, and that's, the sefer that I'm working on right now. But it's such a powerful idea to recognize that, first of all, the big three are not just three big averos, they are the big three, and they are an expression of the root foundation of living a life of emes. And you also have a renewed understanding of V'chai Behem in general is now powerful, because why should you ever be allowed to violate an avera to save your life? Why should you ever be able to do something sheker for the sake of emes? But you now recognize the hierarchy of values of saying that even if something is wrong, like if the whole purpose of life is to live a life of truth, live a life of meaning and emes and self-actualization and contributing to Klal Yisrael and learning and growing and becoming all that you can be, Hashem designed the world for that. Torah is not designed to suppress you, it's designed to express you, to help you become all that you're capable of becoming. It gives you a renewed appreciation for the depth, brilliance, interconnectedness, and real purpose of living a life of emes, a life of Avodas Hashem, a life of Torah. So, this is lumdus, not machshava inspiration. This is real depth, but this is still inspiring. This is still, that's the beauty when you see the layered connections of lumdus and machshava and self-development, psychology and philosophy, and living that Torah. It's the most powerful form of living life. So, for those of you who stayed in for this, this is a mini shir, but this is a powerful yesod on how the big three is a true representation of how to align yourself with the truth and live a life of emes.